Hi everyone, join me today as I paint this whimsical house in watercolor. Today I'm going to paint with my Kuretake Gansei Tambi paints. I've got 3 sets here. The top one is the Kuretake Nuance set. It is a small set that has got pastel colors in it. It is designed to go side by side with the Kuretake Art Nouveau set. So lovely sets of pastel colors here that I think go really well with the whimsical houses. But what I'll also have out, just in case I want to use any from them, is the original Kuretake Gansei Tambi set of 24 colors. So I'm going to have these at hand and use them to paint this house, but you can use any set of watercolor paints that you have. I have been painting all of my whimsical houses in this Potentate sketchbook. It is a 100% cotton square sketchbook, 19 by 19 centimeters. It is hot press paper, and I really like the deckled edge to the paper inside the sketchbook. So that's what I'm going to use today. I am going to start with my sketch already inked on the page. You can find the link to the free Traceable sketch reference if you have a look in the description box below. I will also put the link to the Traceable sketch on the screen now. I'm going to start by spraying my paints to activate them. I haven't yet decided what color I'm going to do the walls, so I'm going to start with the trees and the roof. Normally for the trees I work with the Art Nouveau set, and I use a combination of saffron yellow, ivy green and green grey, but I'm going to do something slightly different today and start with the normal Kuretake set, and I'm going to start with some cadmium yellow, just so that all my sketches don't look the same. I'm going to start by covering the whole tree with the cadmium yellow. I've got it quite watery because I want it to be quite wet so that I can drop the green in. I think I'm going to do this one after the first one is dry so that they don't bleed into each other. So I'm just adding a little bit of water to my brush as I go, just so that this stays wet, so that I can drop some green in it, and so that the color is not too intense. And I'll do this little one down here. Then I'm going to use Sap Green Deep. I've got it in a thicker consistency on my brush because I don't want it to blend quite as far as the yellow, and I'm going to drop it in at the bottom. I want to retain the light color yellow up at the top, so that's why I'm blending it from the bottom up, just so that my color is more intense at the bottom. And I'll come back to that because I've still got a bit too much paint on my brush, because I want to blend the color out towards the top so that it really looks like the sun is hitting the tree from the top. So I've just rinsed and dried off my brush so that I'm not adding any water to this, and just helping the green to blend upwards. Now I'm going to pick up that Sap Green Deep again in a thickish consistency, and it's a bit too much. Repeat from dropping it in from the bottom and blending it up. I want a little bit darker, so I'm going to mix up Sap Green Deep, and I'm going to drop a little bit of indigo in that, just so that I've got a shadow color for the bottom of the tree. So that's made it darker. So I'm just stippling my brush at the bottom so that it's not all the same. This tree, part of the tree is going to be behind this one, so that's why I'm going to put quite a bit of shadow in this area here to bring the other one forward when I paint it. Right, I'm going to leave that, and I want that to dry before I paint it. The other trees to dry before I paint that one. Alright, so with the roof, I think I like to get a mix of more than one color just to keep it interesting. So I'm going to use some Venetian red. Just prepping that there. And I will use another color. I'm just thinking about which one I'll do. And I think what I'm going to do is work the roof wet and wet. I'm going to leave that little, that's going to be the cap like that one is to cover the roof. So that I'm going to do in a different color later. But the rest of the roof I'm going to put water down first. It doesn't matter that I've still got a bit of paint on my brush. It actually helps me see where I've put the water down. That's just going to help me to drop the colors in and let them blend on the page. And working wet and wet, it's a bigger area than the trees were. So working wet and wet just gives me time, and then I don't have to panic that the paint is drying whilst I'm dropping in different colors. Alright, so my water's down. Let me start with that Venetian red. I'm just going to dot it all over the place. And you can see, because I'm dropping it into the water, it's just blending on its own. Then let's take some Mars yellow. And maybe some yellow brown. So I think that those colors talk together nicely on the page, and it makes the roof not so boring. So we don't want to fiddle too much, because I like the fact that the colors are talking to each other and I don't want to mix them all together. I'm just making sure I've got to the edges here. And if there's little bits of white here and there that I've missed because I didn't put water there, that's also fine, because it makes it look like the sunlight is catching the tile. And I know it's going to dry lighter, so I'm just going to get that Venetian red that I started with, because it's blended quite a bit, and just drop that again in places where it looks to me like it's getting a little bit light. But that's where you've just got to see what's going on in your painting and decide if that's something you want to do. And I think this side could have a little bit more Mars yellow. Then what else can I do? I think what I'm going to do, because there's quite a few of them, I'm going to do the windows. So as with many of my other whimsical houses, I like it to look like there's a nice warm glow coming from the inside. So I'm going to do the same recipe that I normally do, and that's a combination of saffron yellow with Mars yellow. If you haven't got those two colors, then you could use any warm yellow, and then maybe a burnt sienna or something like that. I mean, this yellow here would have worked just as easily. In fact, I can mix them together if I want to. I'm going to work a few at a time, because I'm going to want to work wet and wet, put the yellow down first and then the Mars yellow in. So I don't want them to dry out. So I'm going to start by putting the yellow in first. And because that's quite a small area and I've got quite a lot of paint on my brush, I wouldn't drop anything in there now because it's too wet. And any color I drop in is just going to mix completely with that. So we're just going to let that sit for a bit. Everything is still quite wet, so in fact I think I will do all the windows at the same time, because at the bottom here, that's a closed shutter. I've just got this one here and this one here, so I'm just going to have to be careful when I come in with the next color that I don't put my hand down in anything whilst I'm working around. Right, so now to get that glow, I'm going to get some Mars yellow in a thickish consistency on my brush. That's why I'm not mixing it up in my palette first, because I don't want it to blend too far. I can still see that that's pooling in on the page. If I drop something in there, it's just going to spread everywhere. So I'm going to look around at windows that's quite dry already, where it's glistening but not pooling, and put my Mars yellow in around the edge. It doesn't matter that it's not blending very much. In fact, that's ideal, because I can come back with my brush once I've got the color down and help it to blend. I just don't want to drop it in and it blends all the way to the center of the window. You see that's still very wet. So maybe here I need to help this, but I don't want a wet brush going in there, otherwise it's going to blend everywhere. So I rinse and dry off my brush and then just help with the blending. Here I'm going to try and do a bit of lifting in the center. Just putting a little bit of Mars yellow around the edge. Right, then I'm going to use burnt sienna on my pots. I'll add a bit of Venetian red in there. I just want it a little bit more watery. It's also a little bit dark. I think I would have liked this Venetian red as my shadow color on the pots when I try and make them look three-dimensional. That's why I'm just rinsing and diluting this color on the page a little bit. So I think I'm going to turn to burnt sienna as the base color for the pots. Then I'll get that Venetian red and put it down the side of the pots. Here it's dried a little bit because I did that lifting, so I'm just going to rinse off and tap off my brush and try and get a bit of blending here. And then I'm just putting the dark color just down the edge, just to try and get that three-dimensional look. And we'll get that by getting contrast, by making it lighter in the middle and darker on the edges. But it's just not blending very nicely today. Then I think I'm going to use that cadmium yellow and make these flowers all yellow sunflowers. You can make them any color you like. And now there's quite a lot of wet paint on this page, so I'm going to go and have a cup of tea whilst I let this all dry. Right, that is all dry now. So the first thing I'm going to do is the last remaining bit of the tree. What color did I do? I think I did the cadmium yellow. So So this one is in front of that one, so I want to do it a little bit lighter and brighter to bring it forward towards us. Then I'll pick up that sap green deep. If you are enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would click the like button. Doing this really helps to grow my small YouTube channel, and it also tells YouTube to share videos like this with other people like you who might enjoy it too. I'll just dry off my brush a bit and help it to blend. And I'll pick up that same sap green deep again and drop it in at the bottom. Right, so I've been thinking about the color of the walls, and I think I'm going to do these two sections in one color and then these two smaller sections in another. So let me work on the main sections first, and I'm really drawn to the grayish blue in my Art Nouveau palette. So I think I'm going to use that as my base color. I'm just watering it down in the palette there, and using a watery brush, I'll come and put that color onto the page. As you can see, the pigments are extremely thick. When I put them on the page, they get onto the brush so nice and easily that I can then pick up some water from my water jar and just assist the color to spread out on the page. I also could have mixed it up in a paint well first before I came in. I'm going to skip out those little bricks in the wall. I'll do those in a contrast color later. I want to keep it quite wet because I want to drop in a shadow color. So that's why I'm just adding water to it on the page. I suppose because I'm doing this wall in the same color, I could go straight over, but I'm just trying to prevent hard edges forming on this side, so I don't want to spread myself too far until I've got this color down here, and then I'll shift into the section on the left. I can also see it's drying up here, so I'm going to keep on just dropping a bit of moisture back in there so that I still do have time to come and drop my shadow color in before it dries. This color is a little bit darker than I thought it was going to be. Maybe I put too much on my brush. So now I'm second guessing whether I want to do this in the same color. I think I'm going to stick here for now and maybe do this in a different color. I'm going to pick up blue-gray deep and drop this in as a shadow color around the edges. Maybe just a bit here and there for a bit of texture. I'm going to rinse off my brush, help that to blend. And I think I must put some of the color underneath here where there'll be a shadow from the flower box. Alright, so I think we need to lighten things up a little. So I'm going to have to leave this section for now because it's touching. I will work on this one. So I think I'll stick with the plan of doing these two the same color. I'm going to pick up alizarin crimson, which is not the same as alizarin crimson in a normal palette. This is a lot pinker. Again, I'm going to, just don't put your hand down on that one. I'm going to water it down as I go. I think I've done the mistake again of putting too much on my brush there. I'm just going to try and pick some of it up and move it across to this section. If you are enjoying this video and you would like to make a donation to me, you can do so on my Buy Me a Coffee platform. I will put the link in the description box below as well as on the screen now. I'm sure you can appreciate that making tutorials like this along with the traceable sketch reference is an immense amount of work, and I appreciate any and all donations. If you have made a donation, thank you. Then for a contrast color, I'm going to pick up Mauve Taupe. I'll drop that in under the roof and along the edge. It's in a slightly thicker consistency so that it doesn't blend as far. And I think I'll do the chimney in the same color scheme as what I've just done. This is quite dry here. I might be taking a risk putting in some extra shadow color, but I'm going to do it anyway, just under here. But I can come and add in more shadow in an additional layer if I need to. Alright, whilst that's drying, I guess I can work on the rocks down here. I'm just going to use a mixture of browns and greys that I've got in my palette. I'll worry about putting shadows on these rocks in an additional layer. I'm just trying to get different colors mixing through them for a bit of interest. And then I think I'll use a bit of burnt sienna in a lightish consistency just on the step here. I will come and do a shadow on it later. And now I don't want to take a risk of putting my hand in something, so I'm going to give this all a chance to dry. Alright, that is dry now. I'm going to do the trunk of the tree whilst it's not touching anything I'm working with. I'm just going to use raw umber deep and cover everything on the trunks. You can use any color brown that's in your palette. Alright, so for these two walls I think I'm going to use beige grey and yellow brown. So I'm just getting that beige grey watery and I'll put that down as my base color. And I'm just adding water as we go so that it dilutes the color a bit and also gives me some time to come and add in an additional contrast color as well. As much as I am loving the shape of this potentate sketchbook as well as the deckled edge to the paper, I can also tell that the quality is not as great as, say, my Bao cotton paper. You can see it pills a little bit on the surface, and I don't think that it would be able to take too many layers of colors. But for these whimsical sketches in which I'm at most doing 2 layers, and it's not too intricate or detailed, the paper is more than adequate. I can just see it starting to dry up there, so I'm just going to add a bit of water in. Alright, then picking up yellow brown, I'll just do under the roof and around the edges. If the paint set that you're working with is not this Kuretake set and you're looking to make your paints more pastel, you can add white, a bit of white, to any color that you are working with, and that will make it more pastel. That, of course, is against what a lot of people believe, that adding white is more of an opaque color and therefore it's not a pure watercolor anymore. But luckily, the art police don't come around my house all that often, and so therefore I think I'm safe, and probably so are you. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm going to do this little section in exactly the same way, picking up the beige grey first. I mean, if the art police did come around my house often, they'd probably arrest me anyway for using the Kuretake Art Nouveau set, because a lot of people, because of the pastel nature and the white that must be inside the paints, a lot of people really do not regard them as watercolor at all. and that's absolutely fine. They are classified as traditional Japanese paints inside the paint box, and they don't claim to be watercolors. I can't do that window box yet because it's touching the wet as well as everything down here, but I think I can do the green stalks of the flowers in the pots, so let's get that out the way. I'll use ivy green, and I'll use some Mars yellow for the center of the daisies. Alright, I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry. Right, this is starting to come together now, I think. It's time to start doing some of the bits and pieces. So I'm going to do these top 3 pieces first now, and I want quite a nice contrast color. So I'm going to use Blue Grey Deep. If you're not using this set, then something like an indigo or a Payne's Grey would be great. The color is quite intense, so I'm just going to water it down. That's altogether a bit darker than I'd like. I'm just going to use tissue to lift some of the colour, and then I'm going to water it down. And maybe I'll add a little bit of that greyish blue that I used down here. I just didn't think that that very dark blue vibed with the lighter colours that I've got going on down here. Then I'll use that same greyish blue for this separation. Then I forgot this section up here. I'll just go straight for the greyish blue. Alright, let me do the plants in the flower boxes. So I'll pick up that cadmium yellow. I suppose I can do some of these down here as well at the same time. Alright, I'm just getting some sap green deep onto my brush. I can see that this is quite wet. I'm just going to wait about 10 seconds just so that what I drop in doesn't fill in the whole area. I'm just going to rinse and dry off my brush and do a little bit of lifting up at the top here to try and retain that yellow. As I suspected, it was going to spread too far, and it has. So I've just lifted what I could there, and then I'm going to come in with the sap green deep in a thicker consistency. I'm going to pick up some grey now and do a few of the bricks that are isolated on the walls. Then I'm going to pick up flax beige and do a similar thing. I'm just not going to touch any of the bricks that I've just done so the colour doesn't bleed, but I'll choose a couple of other blocks. Then I'll take some burnt sienna in a thicker consistency than what I used before and just put a shadow edge to the step. And then I think I'm going to give this a chance to dry. Alright, that's drying now, so let me carry on. I'm going to do a few of the bricks in the wall that I haven't done yet. Maybe I will use ecru beige. And I think that this ecru beige is a good color for around the windows, so I'll do that at the same time. Then I think that I will do the door in mauve taupe. And I'll pick up some old mauve just to do around the edges. And then I think I'll pick up some pea green and do the grass. Let's throw in a bit of ivy green. And I'll just give that a few minutes to dry. Alright, we're getting there slowly. I'm going to start just doing all the bits and pieces I haven't done yet. So the shutters, I think I want some coherency with my colors, so I'm going to do the shutters in the same colors as the rest of the house here, which now I have to remember, I think it was alizarin crimson. I'll use that, and then a darker accent color. And then I think I'll do the greyish blue on these shutters here. Then I'll get a bit of mauve taupe, drop that in around. And what does that look like if I put some in here? Here, I think I'll do greyish blue around the window. I will use burnt sienna for the flower boxes. And then I just think that this color looks a little bit out of place. It's a little bit too light. I think I'll get some flax beige and just put it on top, just to get it to dull down a little bit. And I'll pick up that greyish blue and just do the top of my railing here. And then I think, let me choose a color for my little flowers here. I think I want to make it quite bright, so I'm going to take some rose madder and yellow brown for the door handle. And then I think I'm going to let this dry and then come back and see what shadows I must do. Now I'm going to move to a smaller size 2 brush because I want to do the shadow on the edge of each of the roof tiles here. So I think that this here was Venetian red. I'm going to mix that up into a thicker consistency. And I want to add a bit of a shadow color, so I'll add some of this blue-grey deep. Maybe a bit more of the Venetian red. And with that on my brush, I'm going to go and do the edge of each of the roof tiles. I just stopped at that point because I realized before I continue what I want to do is separate these two sections of the roof from the one that comes out the front. Particularly here, you can see there's areas here where they're all the same color, but it's not immediately obvious which ones are front and which ones are back. So what I'm going to do is I need to decide which ones are which. I'm going to say that this roof here ends at these tiles here, and then these are all the ones that are underneath. Likewise here, this one is going to end here, these ones are under. So I need to push these under and back, and to do that I'm going to have to do some shadow. So what I'm going to do is put some water down, avoiding the ones that are in front, and I'm just going to cover everywhere. Just to about halfway. I'm not going to touch what I've already done there because it's still damp. And here I'll work around these ones. And then down here. And then I'm going to get this color that I was working with. And I'm going to put it around the edge. And down the side. I'll just drop in a bit more for contrast. And you can see that that immediately separates. We can see what roof belongs to what now. I'll just do a little bit of blending along the edge. And maybe I'll just get a bit of blue-gray deep. Just accentuate that shadow. I'll just blend that there because there will be shadow there. But I'm working wet on dry up on that grey section, so I'm just going to have to help it blend. Alright, that helps things to make a lot more sense. So I'm going to let these two dry and do the edges of the ones at the top first, and then I'll come back down to here. I see the mistake that I made here. I should have done these two the same as those two and made this the bottom level. But working under spotlights is quite difficult to see, and I see that I've made that mistake now. Maybe it just adds to the whimsiness and the wonkiness of the house. There's nothing I can do about it now. So what I want to do is, all these walls are a little bit flat. I know I've done a bit of detail around the edge, but I can't see which ones are at the front and which ones at the back. So I want these two to be the most front and these two have pushed back. So to do that, I'm going to have to do shadow around this edge here and this edge here. And I'm going to work wet and wet for that. So I'll do this wall first and put water down this side. And I might as well, whilst I'm at it, put some water under the eave here. I'm going to work around that inlay area. And then for shadow, I'll use that yellow brown, but maybe I'll add some blue-grey deep to it. And with that in a thickish consistency, I'm going to put the shadow down. I see that my water has pretty much dried out already that I've put down. I'll just get the shadow color down and then I'll wet my brush and help it to blend. And then I'll do the same up here. And I'll just get that shadow color on the tip of my brush and just go around the edge of some of these blocks, just to bring them off the wall a little bit. Then I'll get that blue-grey deep. I want to do a similar sort of shadow around the blocks up here, so I'll do that using the blue-grey deep. And then I'll use Mauve Taupe and do these ones down here. And then I'm just going to dry brush. So I've got that colour on my brush and I'm just going to sweep down the side just to get a bit of wood grain effect on the door. And then I'm going to put some contrast on the grass here. I want to do some shadow where the building meets the grass and behind the pots. So I'm going to put some water down first. Then I'll get green grey and drop it in at the back. Then I'll rinse off my brush and help it to blend. And then I'm just going to get Old Mauve and do the sides of the shutters that are in shadow. And now there's quite a bit going on here, so I think I'm going to let this dry. Alright, what do I want to do next? I think I want to push this section of the house further backwards as well. So I need to create a shadow colour for that. I'll take my alizarin crimson. Let me just put some water down before I add the shadow colour to that. And then I'll get some blue grey deep and add it to the alizarin crimson. I'll just do it under the roof and down the side. I'll just rinse off my brush and help this to blend. And I suppose we should do some underneath here as well. And maybe whilst I've got a little bit of that shadow colour remaining, I'll just do a bit underneath here. I want to darken the burnt sienna on the step. I'll just grab a little bit of the shadow colour with some burnt sienna and do it again. I also want to darken the back of the inside of these pots. I'm just going to take whatever's here. There's a darker colour there as well. So I'm just going as dark as I can with more paint on my brush. And then let's do a little bit of shadow on some of these rocks. I'm going to take a raw umber deep, maybe mix it with a little bit of black. And just do a little bit of shadow here and there. I haven't put water down first. I'm putting the paint straight on and then I'll come and blend it. And I think maybe we're done. What I might do is I'm just looking for things to do now. I'm just going to darken the background of my sunflowers, just so they're a little bit different. I see I need to do the hinges on the doors and windows. Alright, let me do that. I'll just get a little bit of black. I don't want that to be too dark, so I'm just putting a little bit down and I'll come and blend it in. Just a shadow under the shutter here. Yeah, and I think we're done. And there's the final sketch. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please hit the like button and let me know what you think in the comments box below. Until next time, bye for now.